India has done something extraordinary. A milestone the world thought would take decades happened in just a few years. $4 trillion GDP, the fifth largest economy on earth. For a country celebrating this historic achievement, something doesn't add up. Because while India's GDP is skyrocketing, unemployment is at 45-year high. 3/4 of the workforce still earns below living wage. And household debt is exploding faster than any major economy. And yet global headlines keep repeating the same line: India is the next superpower. India will overtake Japan and Germany. A new global economic engine is rising. But what if that narrative is hiding a dangerous truth? What if India's $4 trillion GDP is not a sign of success but a trap? A trap built on numbers that look powerful on paper, but tell a completely different story beneath the surface. Today, we're going to break down how GDP can deceive, why foreign investors are obsessed with the Indian market, and what the data really reveals about India's economic future. Because the question isn't, is India growing? It is, who is India actually growing for? Stay with me. What you're about to discover may completely change how you think about economic growth. To understand why India's economic rise is so complicated, we have to go back not 5 years, not 10 years, but 30 years. The moment every modern economic documentary loves to praise. India was facing one of the worst financial crises in its history. Forced to pledge 67 tons of gold to the IMF to avoid collapse. In return, India had to open its markets, cut trade barriers, reduce state control, and welcome global corporations. And it worked, at least superficially. GDP growth shot up. Multinationals arrived. India was hailed as the next China. But here's the twist the world rarely talks about. India's GDP growth after 1991 was not powered by industrial expansion like China. It was powered by the service sector, the IT boom, business outsourcing, call centers, and the elite, high-skilled work. In other words, the growth benefited a thin slice of the population, while almost 900 million Indians in agriculture and the informal sectors remained untouched. That's where the cracks began. Cracks that today have turned into economic fault lines. A GDP number is like a shiny Instagram photo, beautiful but only showing one angle. Behind India's GDP rise, three powerful forces created a perfect illusion. Services make up over 55% of India's GDP, but employ only 28% of the population, meaning millions contribute nothing to the GDP figure, not because they don't work, but because their work doesn't count in the GDP formula. Credit growth soared, household debt shot up, markets rose faster than wages. When banks lend aggressively, GDP rises even if real income doesn't. Global investors love India for one reason: a massive population that can be turned into consumers. But foreign investment doesn't equal prosperity. It equals dependence on global capital, which can disappear in a single economic shock. These three forces inflated GDP, but left the foundation shaky. And this brings US to the rise. Companies like Infosys, Wipro, TCS, and DHL became global giants. India became the world's outsourcing capital. But these jobs required specialized education, available to less than 10% of the population. Cheap loans, mass credit cards, urban malls, e-commerce. GDP soared because spending soared, but incomes didn't grow anywhere near as fast. India's stock market became Asia's best performer, but only 3% of Indians invest in stocks, meaning GDP growth reflected investor profit, not public prosperity. Record infrastructure announcements, mega projects, expressways, ports. But underneath this, state debt rose every year. GDP goes up when the government spends more, but debt also goes up. A classic trap. Something changed between 2016 and 2024. A series of major economic shocks exposed the weaknesses in India's growth model. Overnight, cash-dependent small businesses collapsed. The informal economy employing 80% of India took a massive hit. GDP dipped, but more importantly, millions never recovered. A modern tax system was extremely complex for small businesses. Compliance costs exploded. Men shut down. The middle class shrank. Unemployment hit record highs. India's poorest experienced one of the world's longest job droughts. Foreign capital became volatile. Export growth stagnated. China's satu strategy brought some gains, but nowhere near enough to replace domestic job losses. All four shocks revealed the truth. India's GDP grows even when people don't. GDP rose, but jobs, stagnant. Wages, flat. Inequality, higher than the colonial era. A frightening divergence. Now we arrive at the real question. Why is India's $4 trillion GDP a trap? India now creates fewer jobs per percentage of GDP growth than almost any major economy in the world. GDP rises, but employment doesn't. This is the first trap. Indian households spend more, but earn less. Household savings are at a 60-year low. Household debt is at a record high. GDP rises because people are borrowing to survive. This is the second trap. Just 20 companies control over 80% of the stock market. In China, thousands of companies drive GDP. In India, a handful do. If they rise, GDP looks great. If they fall, the entire economy shakes. This is the third trap. The informal sector employs over 80% of Indians but contributes shrinking GDP share. GDP looks strong because the part of the economy counted in GDP is strong while the part that employs the most people is disappearing. This is the fourth trap. When you adjust GDP for inflation, falling wages, currency depreciation, India's growth looks dramatically lower. GDP is rising but real purchasing power is falling. This is the fifth trap. Pertama, youth unemployment crisis. Over 45% of young Indians cannot find stable jobs. A demographic time bomb. The middle class shrank from middle income to just surviving income. Small businesses dying, large corporations expanding, wealth inequality at record levels. Lower marriage rates, migration, rising stress-related diseases, religious polarization to distract from economic pain. Foreign investors are extremely sensitive. One global recession, billions can exit the Indian market overnight. GDP would collapse instantly. Make in India low, manufacturing uptake, startup India high, failure rates, PLE schemes, limited job creation, skill India skill mismatch remains, digital push helps corporates more than workers, privatization reduces public sector jobs. Infrastructure push increases debt faster than growth. India is trying to use GDP boosters instead of GDP stabilizers. India today looks eerily similar to Brazil in the 2000s. High GDP growth, foreign capital consumption boom, eventual collapse into inflation and inequality. Turkey 2010-2018, strong GDP numbers, falling currency, huge corporate concentration, a major crash. Thailand 1997, ASEAN crisis, GDP traps built on foreign capital meltdown. The pattern is familiar. GDP rises, debt rises, unemployment rises, foreign capital rises, wealth inequality rises, then the crash. Unless the fundamentals change, economists predict India may reach $5 trillion GDP in 2-3 years, but per capita income will remain $2.700, similar to sub-Saharan Africa, a superpower, with poverty levels of the developing world. That is the contradiction. India will be the world's largest economy with the smallest incomes. And this is why the $4 trillion GDP milestone is a trap. It creates a false sense of success while hiding deep structural vulnerabilities. GDP only measures activity, not well-being. A country can have high GDP but low quality of life. Economies where a small elite grows while the majority stagnates eventually face financial shocks. Ketiga, India needs a job-centric model. Manufacturing, not services alone, must be the foundation of future growth. India stands at a crossroads. One path leads to becoming a true economic superpower with mass job creation, rising wages, and strong domestic industries. The other path leads to a GDP bubble where numbers rise, but the nation does not. The next decade will decide everything. And the biggest danger is not recession, not inflation, not unemployment. The biggest danger is believing that a high GDP means the country is safe. Because when people think everything is fine, that's when economic traps do the most damage. If you want more deep dive, myth-busting financial documentaries like this, like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment your thoughts on India's future.